Welcome back to the Politics and Society podcast. Catherine Connolly wins the Irish presidential election of 2025, elected on the first count with 63% of first preference votes. Heather Humphreys with 29%, Jim Gavin with 7%, and almost 13% of votes spoiled. Starting with Catherine Connolly's historic victory, will this landslide be overshadowed by the spoiled votes, or will history be kind to Catherine Connolly, Marv?
Don't know about overshadowed now, but I think it's like the two big stories anyway. But Catherine Connolly's victory is historic by any metric, the largest amount of votes received by any candidate in any election, and it beats the record of Éamon de Valera in 1959. Michael D. Higgins came close a couple of years ago in 2018. So it's very much a record-breaking performance in that regard. Also, the fact that she was a joint opposition left-wing candidate. And I think the second big winner after Connolly, no question, is Lou MacDonald. I'm kind of eating humble pie here because I did kind of slag her a bit for the so-called game changer, but proved out it was the right strategy for them to take. And I think there'll be all eyes on the Galway West by-election in that front. But despite the vote, it was like, you can't get away from it. It was unprecedentedly high, roughly 13% or something. Absolutely insane amount of spoiled votes. Never, ever, ever has been that high. Shattered the previous record, I think it was 4%. So it is definitely a big story in the election. And a lot of disaffected voters. I had my sources counting the votes in the RDS on Saturday, and there was I heard some stuff written on it, a lot of it too vulgar to repeat on this show. This is a family show.
Keep it PG, yeah.
we keep it PG. We can't repeat some of the stuff that was saying on the ballots, but particularly there was a lot of them endorsing Maria Steen, in particular Nick Delahanty. And to me, it's just a case of, for both the United Left, as they're calling it now, and say the spoil your vote, the Galway West by-election coming up probably in April or May will be, I think, the testing ground for them as to if Maria Steen fancies a go at public office, or Declan Ganley, I know he's a Galway native. Why not try your hat in the ring, put your money where your mouth is, go for the doll, where you might actually have political influence. I think we'll have to see as time goes on what trends are being kept here.
And do you think that this might be seen as a turning point in Irish politics, where we have the government parties only able to get about 36% of the total vote of a presidential election? And as you said, with this United Left, could this be a reoccurring theme of things to come in the next general election?
I don't know. We're very far out. And I mean, I think the story of this election, a lot of it is kind of down to who didn't run. In the case of, had Fianna Fáil ran Billy Kelleher, could this have been a different result? Had Fine Gael gone for the number one plan with Mairead McGuinness, I know she backed out with ill health, could that have changed things? Or even Sean Kelly, I know, is not happy at the minute. So there's a lot of factors at play, because the presidency is a very personal vote, so it's a lot of times people are voting for the candidate as a person rather than what party they represent. So I think that's hard to say. And in terms of the United Left, I think it's a long way away from polling day, and it's different with a Dáil election because you're competing for seats. Lots of constituencies where the parties will be competing for seats, those final 1 or 2 seats in these 4-seaters, 5-seaters, where that alliance may or may not hold up. And also just about what are the ambitions of the Sinn Féin party, because, are they looking to lead a coalition of those smaller left parties, or are they more thinking of what's going to happen with Fianna Fáil? Would they fancy more a coalition option with, say, Fianna Fáil under a new leader? We don't know. 4 years is going to be a long, long time, but it certainly sets the course of, I think, day-to-day politics going forward. But we'll see if it holds.
Absolutely, yeah. And on the theme of the civil war parties, the government parties, following the presidential election, there has been questions asked about Micheál Martin and his leadership in Fianna Fáil. And, there's been some rumours going around that some TDs seem to be fed up with Martin, and there might even be a no confidence motion within the party. So what were your thoughts on that, Marv?
I think he's brown bread at some point over the next 2 months. I say it might happen. They're kind of keeping their powder dry a bit, because it looked like the mutiny was starting there about 2 nights ago, and then they said they'd hold off for the result of this review that they're doing in the party. But Micheál Martin has his fingerprints all over what happened with Jim Gavin. Jim Gavin was his candidate, and it seems that the fortunes of Micheál Martin and Mary Lou MacDonald are kind of, it's like a seesaw from last year, where Mary Lou looked like down in the doldrums after losing that election, and Martin was kind of at the height of his political powers. And now it's gone the opposite way, where Mary Lou is kind of on top of the world, and Micheál Martin's kind of lost a lot of credibility over this election. And there's even TDs like John Lahart and all of Anne Rabbitte, like they're all coming out and voicing their discontent within the party. I feel it's rather inevitable at some point that they'll pull the plug on him. Now, there was talk of him remaining in force for the EU presidency, but that starts next June. So if they're going to let him do that, then we're looking at next January potentially for them to replace him. I think it'll be sooner than that, being honest with you. It's a question of, when does Jim O'Callaghan want someone to stab Micheál in the back? You know, we're not without precedent here. You know, Fine Gael ousted its leader Alan Dukes after their disastrous result in the 1990 presidential election for John Bruton, a fellow Meath man like yourself. This has happened before, so it wouldn't be unprecedented for a leader of a big party to be undone by their presidential election choices. And I think Micheál's been in charge of that party for a long, long time now. You know, there's be fear of, what state is the Fianna Fáil party in now? Have they potentially lost their soul, their identity? Are they too clocked in with Fine Gael? Do they need a new change of direction? And the best way to do that could be to kind of kick them out the door.
Yeah, like as we saw with the Harris Hop and stuff like that. Just, it reminded me there when you said about, remember a few months ago you talked about, like, in the 1980s, Fianna Fáil had that like 45% of the vote, and we've kind of seen that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have kind of amalgamated to make up that vote themselves. Yeah. And you know, that, like, even in the presidential election, even though Jim Gavin pulled out, they still managed to get about 36% of the vote, which is probably around, not far off what they would be polling. Now, in terms of Micheál Martin, I actually don't know if they are going to have a change in leadership, because I just feel that I think it's going to be down the line. They saw what happened with Fine Gael and the kind of bounce and the rejuvenation it brought the party when Leo Varadkar stepped away. Simon Harris went in before the before the last general election. Now, I know they were up at like 27% in some of the polls before the election, and they didn't get that. But I do think it kind of saved Fine Gael in the last election. And I don't know if Jim O'Callaghan or Darragh O'Brien or Jack Chambers, I don't think they want to have that kind of internal kind of conflict at this stage, 4 years out from a general election potentially. So I don't know if I see it myself personally, but it will be extremely interesting to see how it unfolds over the next couple of months, because, you know, as we saw in the presidential election, a week is a long time. When did you say the European presidency is next June? So, you know,
next June, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an extremely long time. You never know what could happen, but sure, look, that's our job to find out what's going to happen and keep on top of the news. So, you know, I think that's us kind of up to date since the presidential election. As you mentioned, we have a by-election that probably won't happen until March or April, but, you know, the political landscape is always changing. We'll keep an eye on the Fianna Fáil party and if they're going to hold a motion of no confidence for Micheál Martin. But until then, I'd like to thank you from myself and Marv, and if you could please give us a like, subscribe, share with a friend, do whatever, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.